Farscape Engineers Inspector Summary Video here in Cleveland. I'm Kelly. The Farscape here, I'm going to start with structural sound must be kept painted in order to pass the inspection and prepare for a load test. This Farscape needs a paint job and it has some structural issues that prevent us from load testing it at this time. So at this time the Farscape does not pass the confidence test and we cannot go to a load test. But in percentages, I think we have about a 25% failure rate here on this Farscape, which we will detail in that. So that's not too bad for a Farscape this old. So she can be spot repaired and then load tested, or at this time we can also discuss with the client that if you fully refurbish this Farscape, which I estimate to be at least 75 years old, you can avoid the load test if there is significant refurbishment on this Farscape. So we're going to talk about that. First, let's talk about the paint. Paint anything older than 1978, as per EPA guidelines, is presumed to have lead. So anybody that's going to scrape and paint this Farscape must have an EPA renovator's license, because the majority of these Farscapes have a lead-based primer, lead-based paint, and so those must be, again, handled by somebody with an EPA license. This is not a de-leading project. This is a EPA renovator's license, meaning they will have a plastic downstairs to collect the chips. No power-assisted grinding on this. All has to be hand scraped. The chips all collected, and then it's going to be a paint coat is applied to this. So that's going to cover the paint aspect of this. Must be an EPA renovator licensed person. Structurally, the Farscape has structural issues mainly at the bottom, some structural issues up here that I'm going to talk about. I'm going to do a video just on this platform here, and then I'm going to do a video on the staircase, and then I'm going to do a video from underneath concluding all the activity. But the structural, the city official, the authority having jurisdiction will determine whether or not some of this work will trigger a permit or not, and whether some of this work, based on the size of the building, a lot of times because it is a commercial building and it's over a certain amount of square footage, they want a preliminary affidavit with a design professional sign off on that, controlling the project. So a construction control document. Again, the city official will let us know so we can advise the client. So starting on the platform, what we have is original hardware, rivets. These rivets are not showing major rust in them, but they do need to get cleaned and then sealed. And a lot of times we recommend sealing them not just with paint, we recommend sealing them with silicone and then giving it a paint job. Anything against the building, you should seal it so that water doesn't get behind and attack that through bolt. That through bolt needs to be verified on the inside, and a lot of times it's a small hole on the inside. Putting in that camera will verify there's a plate back there, and that basically confirms this part. So again, just talking about the platform. The platform has a frame, and the entire frame looks to be in good order. It's all riveted frame, and what we're really mainly going to be concerned about is any welds, and we're going to be concerned about any bolts that are showing rust in the connection. So let's stay on the rails. I've got a couple of welds here, and what you need to do is to avoid a load test of a weld, as soon as you put it in a piece of flat here and you put a bolt here and a bolt here, it negates the need for us to either x-ray or load test these welds. Corners, if you got any rust building up in the corner, you got to pop that rivet, put in a bolt, silicone shut it, avoids the load test, but it also is part of the spot repair that's going to be needed here. So railing's pretty simple. Anything into the building, you need to silicone shut it if it's in good order, not moving like this one's not. But in order for us to avoid the load test, you can either take this out or keep this one in and put another clip to the side and put another expansion bolt here. That satisfies the other evidence of strength. And if you do a significant amount of it, there's no load test. So what would be significant amount? This entire railing system, all the bolts on the very top, the rivets are going to get swapped out with bolts. The minor structural, which is these down below, as long as they're in good to excellent condition, they can stay rivets. But corner posts, they need to be rebolted. Corners need to be rebolted. Welds need to be reinforced with bolts. Bolt here, but the rivets can stay here, but you got to seal these up. But you got to put a bolt down there. So the major structural needs to get rebolted, and that avoids the load test. That's on this platform. Let's talk about the supports underneath. Some of these supports is a combination of bolts. So the bolts, to avoid the load test, swap out the bolt. Otherwise, load test an existing bolt if it's in good to excellent condition. We got welded connections here on these brackets. These brackets are welded. So we load test them to verify the welds, or if you put in a gusset or in new bolting, keep the weld but gusset it, there is no load test. That bolt down there, Looks like it's in good order. So a load test will confirm that. Otherwise, you change that bolt out, there is no load test. And see all that accumulation down at the bottom because of rain and the debris? We got to silicone shut that so that water stops destroying the bottom of that. We got some holes in the walls. That's going to be down here on the staircase. But you got to make sure no water's getting in there. So, as you can see here, water's getting into this brick. As it gets in here into this brick, it's going and feeding that. So we got to close this up. We got to silicone shut this, but this is masonry activity above and beyond the work that's going to be done by the iron worker. So you got to seal this up with silicone. The welded connections on the brackets, both sides, this side and the other side, need to be done. The framework, if all that framework gets rebolted, there is no load test. If that framework stays with the original hardware, like that there, we have to load test this. 100 pounds per square foot. This is roughly 4 feet by 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 2,400 pounds of sand, water, or cabling needs to be exerted here with an engineer criteria for load testing. Must be witnessed or not by the city official, and it must be documented in such a way that once it passes the load test, then that document has to be sent to the city, and then it's got to be repeated in 5 years' time. Sometimes refurbishing it 100% puts off the load testing concern for anywhere from 15 to 25 years. I'm a little concerned about these power cables that are coming through here, and they get very close. A lot of times when you have so much water in cases of fire, sometimes they ask that these cables be covered with the orange from the electric company. They put an orange sleeve over those to stop any electrocution issues. Okay, so we've talked about the brackets, we've talked about the supports. Any welds on these supports must be reinforced with a bolt. If you Part 2. We're here now looking at this fire escape here in Cleveland, Ohio, and this is part 2 of the inspection. The fire escape, we've talked about the first part, which is the platform. Now we're talking about the stairs. Then the railings going down the stairs have the same concern as the upper one here, and that is all the major structural needs to be changed out, and all the minor structural can stay. So top of the rail is major, bottom of the rail is major, the in-between is a minor. And as long as it's in fair to good condition, it can stay with the rivet, okay? But these bolts need to be changed out, this needs to be changed out, and so on and so forth, all the way down, going down. That avoids the load test. If you swap out every old fastener, every rivet gets swapped out in here, that's a major structural, you avoid the load test, okay? So going down these stairs, the fire escape, again, is only about 25% structural failure, and it's going to be down there that I'm going to show you. But as you start coming down, you see, riveted treads. It's all common here for Cleveland to have this, what should be a stringer on the side. They've made it using flats and angles. Not very common on the East Coast or the West Coast, or even up in Chicago. But here, this is a common practice. So it's really a lot of areas, a lot of joints where water can get in. But I'm not seeing a huge amount of rust on this staircase here. But as you can see as we go down, this bracket, I'm going to be able to show you some concerns I have in the bracket. Primarily that big hole, that needs to be cemented because water's getting in there and it's making that through bolt suspect. Okay, so that needs to be addressed. Coming down, we've got some repairs that occurred on this fire escape back when. It looks like they put these treads over it. The original treads are down below, so the rise and run is different now. They put in some welding patches here, so this needs to be new piece of angle. They did that here, so maybe this needs new angles. This is 1 1/4" angles here. There's been some patching here, and again, anything that's welded needs to be taken out and need to rebolt. The cement pad needs to be sealed. It was sealed before, or something happened here, but you try to get the water from pooling up on this cement because it'll transfer to the steel and rot it out exactly the way it is right now. To avoid the load test, all these rivets got to change over to bolts on both sides. To just load test it, we need to verify every one of these rivets, and then we can proceed to the load test on this fire escape. The whole bottom here needs to be rebuilt because, again, it looks like some of it rotted out, maybe from all the rain, some of the moss. So it just looks like this bottom, the rest. So about a 25% failure rate structurally, and if you take care of that, then we can proceed to the load test. Here's a typical bracket. Again, welded, and we need to turn that into bolted connection so we can avoid having to load test. Welded, welded, welded up there. So as soon as you start taking this and you make it into a bolted connection system, there is no load test for that. Otherwise, this needs to be load tested. The welds look good, but they are known to snap under stress, under load. And the original hardware must be swapped out if you want to avoid the load test. Otherwise, again, this entire fire escape system only has summary video here. This is the final one. We're here in Cleveland. This is Kelly, fire escape number 1. And what you have here is the fire escape. In total, it needs a paint job. It does have lead, so it must be an EPA renovator licensed person. The fire escape is only failing about 25% of its connection. Even though it's 75 years old, she's not that bad. A majority of these connections, over at least 75% of these riveted connections are still in good order. They need a paint job and they need to be sealed so that water doesn't get in there. So they